All right, everyone, welcome back to another special edition of Phantom Edge. I have a very special guest here. His name is Ryan from Messari, and I'm super excited to talk about this because it's a very special occasion because you've done research on Phantom, and that's what this show and this episode is actually about. So, Ryan, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. So, before we begin, give us a short intro on who you are, what you do, and pretty much your role at Messari.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Ryan. I'm a diligence analyst for Messari. So a little background on myself. I first got started in crypto like maybe back in, I think it was literally the pico top of the 2017 bull run.
Mm,
I was still a kid in high school, so I didn't really know too much about it, but I thought it was pretty interesting. My funny story I always like to share is I managed to convince my dad to buy the pico top of XRP back in the day. So yeah, once everything happened, like the bear market 2018, I stuck around, like just kind of very low key paying attention, like whatever summer job I was working, I was
mhm,
always saving money and I would just buy Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then in 2020, when things started picking back up with DeFi summer, is like when I started like, okay, I own a couple of these assets. I don't really know what they do.
mhm,
Let's learn a little bit more about it. And that's when I like started really getting into it and just like learning every day, like, okay, like this is really cool stuff. And I took my next step like summer 2021. Like I was like, I spend like at least 8 hours a day just like researching stuff and like why don't I, take the next step and like try to make this a career. And at the time I was still in school, so there wasn't too much I can do. But
mhm.
that's when I started my own blog called Average Joe's Crypto, and that's kind of what I go by
Yeah.
on crypto Twitter and stuff like that. So I started writing in August 2021, and then like I would just write about whatever piqued my interest and all things crypto. Like
Yeah.
I wrote about the curve wars. I'm pretty sure I did a piece on Fantom back in the day, especially starting around like September, no, October, November 2021 is like that was like when I first bridged into Fantom as
Mm,
well.
yeah.
And the thing that stuck out to me right away was like a really cool like niche community building
Yeah.
community, especially like I don't know, some other chains, it's like kind of copy paste of other networks where I felt like Fantom
Mhm.
had a really unique developer community, which stood out to me. But moving on, then when I graduated college in May 2022, and that's when I literally started the same week at Messari
Mhm.
on a diligence team. So a little bit more about what I do at Messari. I'm primarily on the diligence team. So basically, what we do is we write diligence reports for like enterprises and institutions, just on various crypto assets, specifically the tokens. And
Mhm.
then I'm also helping out on the protocol services side, specifically with Fantom. So I get to write a bunch of cool stuff about Phantom. I wrote the IOC with
Yeah.
Jim in July, and currently, right now, I'm working on the quarterly report for Phantom for Q3.
Yeah.
So I know I kind of went on a tangent, but that's kind of my
No,
background, how I got into crypto and
and
everything.
I'm glad that you kind of explained a little bit about Average Joe's Crypto, your brand and the purpose of that, right? And I guess it's safe to say, man, you got in kind of early, right? You said 2017. That's
Yeah,
you
but
were
not with a lot. It was like literally I was a go-kart attendant, so I'd make like $12 an hour. And after $12 an hour, I'll put like $2 into crypto. So
yeah.
I might have been early being there, but it hasn't. That's why I'm still working.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it's just interesting, man. You were in high school at the time, so I mean, I was in college when I first discovered crypto in general. So it's really cool, man. I'm glad you're in the space and doing what you do now in Messari and specifically focus on Phantom. So that's what today's show is about. So yeah, man. The first question I have for you, as you mentioned, you have been kind of involved in the Phantom community, if you will, or at least interested in diving deeper. So that said, is there anything specific that stood out to you when doing research on Phantom, whether that's IOC or from your experience in general?
Yeah, so a couple things. So I guess it makes most sense to start from like the beginning, like
Mhm.
before I was even with Messari. I touched on it before, but like I really found Phantom's like kind of native developer community to be really cool, and it was like very grassrootsy.
Mhm.
That was definitely something that stood out because like they were doing stuff that not a lot of other protocols were doing, and I always just loved the how every protocol like aligned themselves with fandom, like Spooky Swap, Geist, and
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
the whole like ghost theme stuff. So I thought that was really cool and like something that definitely stuck out to me. But yeah, like so I remember like back in 2021, like I think pretty sure it was like Beethoven X, and I was like trying to get yield on my stable coins, and I sort of like, oh, the grand opera or whatever, I can get like 20% yields. Like, oh, that's pretty dope. And like how does this all work and stuff like that. So yeah, that was like my original connection with Fantom. And then like thankfully at Messari, I get to continue researching and writing about stuff that I personally use.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like when I was doing the IOC, like the things that stuck out to me the most, I definitely like how we'll probably touch upon this some other questions as well, but like the thing that like really stood out to me at first was like back in what was it, November, October, Andre was just like, yeah, we have like a 30-year runway treasury, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's a lot of dough. And like when you have that much dough, you can compete with the big boys. And I was like, okay, like that was kind of the signal to me, like, okay, they're here to stay, like
Hmm.
they're not just grifting around and stuff or whatever. Like they're ready to compete in the bear market. And like as everyone knows, the bear market is going to get brutal, but that's the time to build, which
Right.
Fantom has been doing a great job of, I think. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, a little bit more stuff that like has definitely stuck out to me. I kind of like the two-tiered approach.
Hmm.
How I like to define it is that they're focusing very much on the technicals and the development side.
Hmm.
Stuff like the FBM, we'll touch on that more later.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff technology wise, increasing transaction speed. And then the other side of that is definitely more a community developer side focus. And
Hmm.
we'll touch on this as well. But
Yeah.
the ecosystem vault, gas monetization program, some hackathons have been coming out with some cool stuff. So like, I really like how they're taking the two-step approach of like you have to not only do you have to improve the underlying tech,
Hmm.
but you also have to like foster uh this native development community, which has been around for a while, but like now it's time to supporting them even more.
Hmm.
So that's like the two things that really stood out to me.
Yeah.
I think most like chains are trying to go with a similar approach. I think that's probably the best way to build. But like Fantom, I think, in my opinion, is doing a really good job of that.
Yeah. And speaking of bear markets, as you said, bear markets are a great time to build, right? And I'm curious to know, compared to other competitors, how do you think Phantom navigated some of the bear market downturn?
Yeah, for sure. So the bear market, like it's obviously the bull market is when everyone's having fun and it's the good times, but like progress is made in the bear market. Like you can look back to last bear market and like all the cool stuff that came out of that. Like obviously, I would say like probably number one is probably like Uniswap and DeFi and
Hmm.
stuff like that, especially like DeFi summer. So like we're building like right now everyone's trying to build like the next thing for the bull market, and you don't know what's going to work until that happens.
Hmm.
But I feel like Phantom's definitely doing a good job of like trying to encourage or support developers that are trying to build that next big thing. One thing that stood out to me is like when I joined Fantom, I was always interested in the DeFi kind of side of stuff.
Hmm.
I noticed that in this bear market, Fantom is definitely exploring more of like the gaming side of things.
Hmm.
I think blockchain gaming is very interesting. I definitely think that's like an easy route for blockchain technology to like go mainstream.
Hmm.
But like I think the key is like for blockchain gaming is like it kind of has to be abstracted away from the user. Like I like to game myself, but like I'm not, as someone like that's very involved with blockchain, like I still find it a little annoying if I have to like directly connect my wallet and stuff like that. But like I think that's where we're gonna make progress with this bear market is like my one of my predictions like for the next bull is like we're gonna have some like gaming, like AAA gaming
Hmm.
uh protocol product that's just a game that like everyone is gonna be playing, and like you're gonna
Hmm.
ask like the average person like, oh, did you know this is like running on blockchain tech?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, then I have no idea. So I think Phantom's making some cool strides in the gaming side of things, especially with the FVM upgrades upcoming that should increase transaction speeds.
Yeah.
One game like that's gotten really popular on Phantom is S4 Kingdoms.
Yeah.
It's pretty dope. I played around with a little bit, still getting my feet wet. But yeah, just stuff like that. Like I definitely think like having building more out of than just like a DeFi
Yeah.
chain. What I would say, but not unfairly labeled, but like that's kind of what everyone knows Fantom as, like going back to the last bull run. I think that's a fair
Sure.
categorization. But like blockchains are so much more than just DeFi. And
Yeah.
if Fantom definitely like build out this gaming side of things, which they're definitely working on. I'm forgetting some other gaming projects that came out of like the Q2 hackathon. I think it was
Yeah.
one of them was like Phantom Lords or something like that.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So but yeah, I definitely think that's like a really interesting approach to like building in the bear,
Yeah.
especially like we're gonna have to get users back into crypto, not just Fantom, just crypto across the board. And like the best way to do that, I think, is like you're gonna have them interact with blockchains and not even know. So I definitely
Yeah.
looking forward to more development like that. And like I definitely think taking this in addition to the DeFi stuff, obviously, but like the gaming approach is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been an interesting conversation talking to people in the gaming space, in crypto space alike, right? To kind of talk about how probably the next wave of, I don't want to say adoption, but for the lack of a better word, is going to be probably gaming. So shout out to S4, shout out to Phantom Adventure and Phantom Lords on Phantom. So
Yeah.
you mentioned the FBM. Obviously, it's a big talking point uh in the crypto space here at Phantom, right? What do you think? Like, how can the FBM transform the way Phantom is perceived, and how do you think this will affect builders on the chain?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple thoughts to share about this. Like first off, like what is the FBM going to do? So basically, the FBM it's keep it in layman terms. Even for myself, I'm not a technical person.
Yeah.
I come from a finance background, so to me, like what the FBM is it's basically going to increase transaction speed on Phantom
Mhm.
while maintaining Solidity and Viper smart contract language. So like EVM's compatible, which is really good because like for blockchain technology, the biggest developer base is EVM. Obviously, that's not the case in non-blockchain areas. That's why there's stuff like Solana and Rust and all that stuff, and they got some cool stuff going on. But like for the crypto developer community, like EVM is king.
Mhm.
So Phantom is taking a unique approach. Like, you know what, we're not going to abandon the EVM. Like the EVM is good. Our developers enjoy this, but like, how can we make this experience better for not only them but the users as well? So that's where the FEM comes kind of in, and it's basically going to increase transaction speeds on Phantom. I saw parts of Token 2049 with Michael
Yeah.
Kong. He was talking about what they got. I think so. It was what like 2,000 transactions per second,
Mhm.
which is what like eightfold what Phantom does right now.
Yeah.
And I remember like in my research, like reading something like if they can do that, like Visa does like 100 million transactions per day or something like that, and
Mhm.
like that would Phantom would be able to do four times that.
Yeah.
So if you can actually achieve that, that level of transactions, which all early indications are showing that it's possible, you open up a whole new plethora of use cases for
Yeah.
blockchain technology, which like we've touched upon. Like gaming is definitely one of them. Like you can't run a game on Ethereum.
Yeah.
Like there's just not enough transactions being
Congestion.
congestion, which is fine. Like
Yeah.
Ethereum's not designed for that, but like obviously that is going to be a use case of blockchain technology, and like if Phantom can do that, that's really cool. And then it also even like on the DeFi side of things, like what forex markets do like a couple $1 trillion of transactions a day. Like imagine like a blockchain right now trying to scale that. Like it would be impossible. So obviously like the FEM, like that is the next step. We probably have to get even more than
Yeah.
2,000 transactions per second, but like that's the next step to bringing even more of like real world assets on chain. Like imagine being able to trade like from yen to euros on chain,
Mhm. Mhm.
stuff like that. So like that'd be really cool. And like the the implementing the FEM definitely enables that. And like how I see it, like once the FEM is implemented, like it's going to become like this high speed throughput
Mhm.
execution environment that's like very similar to Ethereum. I know Andre and Michael Kong on their interview with the block were kind of talking about like making a bridge from Ethereum to
Mhm.
Phantom, kind of using like the ARB stack or Optimism stack.
Mhm.
Not an L2, but using their bridging technology. So that would be really cool. Like if we could, obviously Ethereum is going to have the most liquidity, but like tap into that liquidity into a higher performant environment like Phantom with the FBM and
Mhm.
use that to enable really cool use cases like gaming, like high frequency trading and stuff like that that really aren't possible right now.
Yeah.
I think that's really exciting, and like I think we're gonna get some really cool stuff coming from that in the next year or
Yeah.
two, especially once the next bull market arrives. So yeah,
Yeah, the FEM is super exciting. I mean, from all angles, speed, you're talking about storage upgrades, right?
yep.
And I think it's going to be on the builder side, I think it's very attractive to either for those expanding, looking for a different home base, right? To support that. Transaction costs are obviously very, very low. And I mean, your time to finality is sub 1 second. So it's going to be really interesting once that unravels here, right? But moving forward, Ryan, obviously, on the creator and builder side, there's two programs at Fantom that have recently garnered some attention, right? We got the ecosystem vault as well as the gas monetization. Um, how do you think like how do you see these progressing the growth of Fantom? Obviously we just concluded the ecosystem vault funding round, which a lot of I believe it was 9 projects that participated. I'm curious to see in a bear market, which is good. This is extra funding. So how do you see this progressing? And how do you see this going in tandem with Fantom's growth?
Yeah, for sure. So first, like kind of a broader overview of like why this stuff is important. Like unless you're very like crypto native, like people aren't going to use your blockchain just because it's fast or it's cheap or
Correct.
something like that. Like you need to build killer apps on top of your blockchain. This is like one thing that I always like preach in my own like personal writings is like most people are not going to care what blockchain they're using. They're going to care about the applications built on top of your blockchain.
Yeah.
Like all that tech stuff we talked about is extremely important because that is what's going to enable these awesome and cool killer apps that people are going to be attracted to. So how do you actually like you got to first build the technology, which Fantom is doing, has done, is doing, going to continue to do, which is that's like the foundation, right?
Mhm.
The second step is like you have to incentivize like developers to come build, and to me, like that's what the ecosystem vault and the gas monetization program are exactly doing, and like that's absolutely crucial. Um, let's starting with the gas monetization program. Like, I don't know why more chains like don't have a program like this, honestly. Like,
Mhm.
because before like programs like this, I think the other chain that does it is like Kanto, right?
Mhm.
Like you deploy some code, and then that's it. Like
Mhm.
you're not going to get any money from that. All that money that could drive a ton of value is going to the protocol level, which is great for the protocol. But
Yeah.
like after you developed this great piece of code, this great smart contract, like you're not making any revenue off that.
Yeah.
So Fantom came out and said, "Hey, why don't we incentivize people to, deploy smart contracts on
Yeah.
Fantom? We'll kick back some of the profits that you're making off this." And like, it's such a simple business model, but like that's how the real world works. Like, you provide
Yeah.
a service that's useful, you're going to get paid for it. So like, I definitely think like over time we're going to see like more protocols
Mhm.
and developers like want to come to Fantom because like it's an easy revenue line to open up. Like,
Yeah.
if I can, even if let's say I'm not even a Fantom developer, my protocol's on some layer two. Like, why would I not deploy onto Fantom and bring liquidity and bring my smart contracts over there if like they already have a revenue model for me? Like, I don't have to create an additional revenue model on top. Like,
Yeah.
if I have my decentralized exchange, like I can deploy it on Fantom, and boom, like every time a transaction goes through, like I'm getting some of those gas fees back. Like, to me,
Yeah.
like I think the gas monetization program is like a killer feature for Fantom and like protocols
Yeah.
looking to build on top. I definitely think that's something that's gonna realize itself more in the bull market because like right now
Yeah.
transaction levels are down all across the board. But
Correct.
like if Dex volumes start shooting up and like we're doing crazy volumes again, people are going to be like, wait a second, like
Mhm.
if my Dex was on Fantom, like we're not charging extra costs to the users. It's already built into the gas fees, but that's getting kicked back to me. Why would I not want to be on Fantom?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're already kind of seeing that like right now, like what I was just writing this section before in the quarterly report, but like 500,000 FTM got deployed, not deployed, distributed to 12 different protocols for the quarterly bonuses.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, some of them was like Spooky Swap, Beethoven, Layer
Mhm.
Zero, Stargate, Mummy, all these different protocols, and like
Yeah.
it's a great way to incentivize like developers to come to your chain. And like I definitely think that's something really cool. And I definitely think other chains are gonna start exploring and
Yeah.
uh probably integrating that. And so that's cool that Phantom's like definitely on the earlier side of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's really cool. The other big growth initiative is the ecosystem vault,
Mhm.
which as you mentioned before, we just the Gitcoin grants funding round just got
Yeah.
completed. And yeah, like it's kind of building off the same principles of the gas monetization
Mhm.
program. Like you
Mhm.
have to incentivize developers to come and build. They build really cool projects and apps. Then the users come and use said projects and
Yeah.
apps. So I just think like the two of these things in combine are like providing a great environment for developers to come build on Fantom, and I'm like excited to see how they continue growing.
Yeah.
Um, because I know like even like I was doing the research and like the hackathon Q2, like
Yeah.
Uh, some of the and Hackathon Q1, like S4 Kingdoms came out of that. They got funding from the ecosystem vault.
Correct.
Phantom Lords, I might be saying it wrong.
No, you're right. Phantom
They
Lords.
came out of a hackathon too, and they
Yeah.
got an ecosystem vault. So like that like pipeline to
Yeah.
hackathon projects to, all right, you know what? Here's this initial grant that you got for doing the hackathon, but like keep building with us. Here's a bigger war chest that we can continue funding you from.
Yeah.
It makes developers don't want to have to worry about like revenue and stuff like that. They just want
Yeah.
to
I
cool
just want to
stuff.
build.
They just want to build, baby.
Yeah.
So that's like what the ecosystem vault and gas monetization program can do for developers. And I think that's really awesome. And especially like getting back to like you need killer apps. Like that is
Yeah.
what's going to drive adoption and new users to Fantom.
Yeah.
And the ecosystem vault and the gas monetization program are like two great ways of doing exactly that.
Yeah, I want to emphasize what you said about that pipeline because I think if you get those all in place, right? Like you said, you got the hackathon, you have obviously I want to get eyeballs on my DApp, whatever it may be. Okay, cool. I won first, second place, got some funding. Now I could qualify for these other programs, right? Whether it be the ecosystem vault or obviously gas monetization, which I think is fantastic. I mean, when we first discussed it, it was like explaining to people just like YouTube pays its creators, its highest paying creators based on traffic. You know, same thing like you said with on the protocol level. Wait, you're making revenue, you have a killer DApp. Let's send you back some funding. That way you could keep operating, right? And it's going to
Yep.
be exciting to see that. Like you said, it's going to kick in full effect for the next bull run.
Yeah.
You
Kind of build off what you just said, like, sure, it's a Web 2 model, but like Web 2 does get some things right. Like,
yeah,
how do
yeah,
you think YouTube took off so great? Is because it was like you can make money for having fun and creating videos. So it's
exactly.
the same business model, just applied to the blockchain. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I would say it's a good business model. That's why
Yeah,
everyone knows what YouTube is.
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you've mentioned gaming as a use case, right? Is there any other use cases that you're kind of excited about being built specifically on Phantom, leveraging FVMs coming up? Obviously, the speed's already good, the it's affordable. So is there any other use cases that kind of pique your interest that you'd like to see on Phantom or you expect on Phantom?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we definitely talked about gaming a bunch.
Yeah.
Definitely excited about gaming. So I'll try not to talk about that as much,
Yeah.
but we'll talk more about like the DeFi and then even social fi kind of side of
Yeah.
things. So like obviously like the big thing right now is friend tech. I think
Mhm.
friend tech is like the first of many, many protocols that we don't even know that are going to come out yet.
Yeah.
And not even the same stuff, like building on top of that, completely different social narratives. Like think about like how many different social applications there are right now, right?
Absolutely.
There's so many, like even ones like I don't know, like the one I use for my job, like Slack, just communicating with my team members. Like
Yeah.
that's all coming on chain one way or another. And social interactions are huge, huge amount of transaction load, right?
Hmm.
So I would definitely expect like I think Friend Tech has kind of started off like kicked off this like social fi, like social integration onto the blockchain. And like people are gonna quickly realize like you can't keep all this on one blockchain, even if it's a
Yeah.
layer like base. And then the FEM and Phantom is gonna be like, here, we got 2,000 transactions per second. Like, let's bring some of that social fi stuff that's gonna be we're in the early stages of it. Like, I don't even know where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone does. Like, it can go anywhere. So I definitely think like that's like one use case that I see that the FEM could definitely capture that we don't even that no one's even really talking about yet.
Yeah.
Some more established stuff, like I definitely we mentioned this earlier, but like the DeFi kind of side of things. I mean, to me, DeFi is what interests me a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's like what piqued my interest in Phantom to begin with. Like Phantom is always going to be primarily a DeFi chain, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I know like Andre has done stuff with like Curve and Iron Bank and like all this like forex trading. I definitely think like forex is coming onto the blockchain
Mm.
eventually. It's a real world.
Interesting.
It's gonna happen because like the killer app, like crypto's killer app right now is like I can send USDT and USDC across the world for
Mhm.
no cost and instant settlement. Why not have that be able to do like with forex trading? Like I can send my US dollars for British pounds for euros
Mhm.
and have that settle instantly rather than going through clearing houses and clearing firms that take T+2, T+3 days to settle. Why not settle in sub 1 second on Phantom?
Mhm.
So I definitely think like this is end game stuff. Like this is
Yeah.
even if Phantom like once the FEM comes out, like it's still not going to be able to support that. We're still like 5, 10 years away from this, but like I like to look out in the future and like the big picture.
Yeah.
Like we've shown that like crypto is shown right now, like sending US dollars across the world is awesome,
Mhm.
right? Everyone wants to do that. That's crypto's killer app right now. Why stop at US dollars and why stop at just sending it? Why not buying and selling different currencies? And like I think that's kind of the end game. And like the FVM is the next step to getting to that.
Mhm.
So eventually, yeah, I think like the real world asset is kind of like the big like narrative this bear market, rightfully so.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is going to be like Forex and different currencies coming on chain. And like imagine like a curve pool running on Phantom that I can swap my US dollars to British pounds,
Yeah.
just renminbi or something like that. Like that's really cool. And I think, I mean, there's already some like I think the Bank of International Settlements is like
Mhm.
they have papers out on it where they're using curve pools, but they're not calling it curve pools.
Yeah.
But you look at the if you look at the smart contract, the same thing.
Yeah.
Like once that happens and we're doing trillions of dollars of transaction, it's not going to be able to be all done on Ethereum. Maybe on Ethereum will just be the absolute biggest, bank
Yeah.
settlements, something like that. But like if I'm traveling, like I live in America, if I'm traveling to Europe, why not? Why should I not like use Phantom curve pools that have a USDC British pound pool and transfer like that,
Yeah.
instant settlement, well, sub 1 second.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of the really cool stuff to me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think blockchain technology is just so awesome. And then like Phantom
Yeah.
is a part of that. And like building these FVM type technology upgrades where, we're getting faster and faster. And there's gonna be use cases that like we don't even talk about today.
Yeah.
And like
Right.
5 years from now, we're gonna look back like, how did we not think about that?
Yeah.
But I think that's the cool thing is like by building this awesome technology with the FEM and like increasing transaction speed, like
Yeah.
we talked about a couple use cases now, but like we're not stop. It's not going to stop with that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely exciting stuff going on.
I agree. I think to be fair, I think you're the first person that's ever kind of explained to me the forex part. So I haven't thought about that. That's pretty, I mean, it makes sense, right? In theory. And like you said, I think it's going to take years, and that's end game stuff. So it's clear that it's something that's not going to happen overnight or just because the technology is available. I think we're
Probably won't
still,
even happen next bull run, by the way. Probably
yeah,
after that. This is like 2030, 2035 type stuff.
absolutely. And the way I look at the crypto scene, it's just like a giant startup, really, right? You're throwing things at the wall, see what works, see what doesn't, prune out bad players, right? Leverage good players. What I mean by leverage is highlight good players and things like that, right? So yeah, super exciting stuff, man. But Ryan, I want to thank you so much for being here with me today and walking us through what your thoughts, what you've seen doing Fantom research as both as a researcher but also as a user. Your kind of thoughts on how the FEM will affect Fantom's growth, as well as use cases, right? That you plan on seeing or expect and excited about, right? To say the least. So, thank you so much, Ryan, for being here with me.
Yes, no, thank you for having me. I had a great time talking to you.
Yes. So we'll do it again soon, and we're looking forward to that quarterly report, and
Sure.
we'll could chat more about that later on.
Sounds great. Thank
All right,
you.
Ryan.
Take care.
Take care.